All right, today we're going to learn about the circumcision. We started just yesterday. Okay, so we skipped over in this class, which I'm sort of having regrets that I did, but we did it. The war that Abraham had single-handedly against these four kings, and he saves Lot from them. Saves Lot. These kings, and Lot goes and lives in this place called Sodom. And Sodom, of course, is well known for its evil, sadistic activities. Okay, after that, so what's this? After that, so Abraham, God makes this covenant with Abraham between these pieces of animals, these sacrifices that he makes. And then after that, Abraham announces that Sarah's going to have children. He's going to have a child, so that Abraham is going to have a child. And then God tells him, and Sarah, she doesn't have any children, so she takes her maidservant. This is what we learned yesterday. Hagar, whose name is also Keturah, and she used to be the princess of Egypt. And she says, "Okay, you get married to Abraham in the place." And she gives birth to this child, Ishmael. Okay, then after that was when Abraham was 86 years old. Okay, here we go. We began this yesterday. So, okay. Vayi Abraham ben Tishim Shana. Abraham was 99 years old. 99 years old. And God appeared to Avram. His name was not Abraham yet. And he said, Lavani Hashem El Shaddai. This is my name, El Shaddai. Why does God have all these different names, huh? Why? Well, we'll see. Each name of God is a different aspect of God. Because God has all these aspects, as we've talked about before, that this is the alternative to idolatry. If you think that God is just too high up and he has no personality, that's what like the Hindus do. He's just too infinitely, real and etc. And he can't answer your prayer. So therefore, you have to have something in the middle, so that you just don't wander around until you die. And you have to. So they have all these other gods that they worship. In order to eliminate that, because that's forbidden. It's forbidden to do what they do. Basically, all these Eastern religions, they have some person or some statue or something that they worship. So that's forbidden. And it's 10 commandments. First 10, I am God that took you out of Egypt. Second commandment, you can't have any other gods. That's it. And that's not just for the Jews, for all mankind. 7 Noahide commandments. First of the 7 Noahide commandments is you have to worship only God. You can't worship idols. So God has all these different aspects. So this is one of them, and the name is El Shaddai. And here it says that Yud Kei Vav Kei, another name of God, Yud and He Vav Kei, he spoke to God. He spoke to Abraham. And sometimes Abraham says, here, we'll see you once again. Abram fell on his face and he said, and Elohim spoke to him. Now Elohim is speaking. So already we have 4 different names of God. Here's the name of God, which is Elohim. We say Elohim. And we have over here the name of God, Yud Kei Vav Kei, Yud. We don't want to say all the letters of God's name. It's Yud and then Hey and then Vav and Hey. And here we have another name, El, and here we have another name, Shaddai. So the Ramban makes a big thing of this. What is it? What exactly the difference between these different names? So you can read it if you want. Usually the name Shaddai means that God has sufficient, he's connected to the world and he has sufficient to provide for the whole world. And the name El means like 2 opposites, but usually the name El is kindness, God's kindness, and Shaddai is God's power. And Yud Kei Vav Kei is like the God's mercy. There's a lot of different explanations of these different names, and they all have their place in Kabbalah. All these commentators here on the Torah, they were all people that had a good, firm awareness of Kabbalah. What is Kabbalah? Just trying to know God as much as possible. Okay, here we go. Let's see. Rashi says, "Ani El Shaddai, Ani Hu Shamadai Elokus." I have enough godliness for the whole creation. Therefore, I want you to go before me. And I will be to you for a God, a patron, for a power, and for a helper. I think we did this yesterday. Time means enough, and etc. What does it mean, go in front of us? Palach kadma, you should serve before me. This is Aramaic. Hidabek bavodati, you should clean yourself to serving me. And you will be complete. Remember, we learned this before yesterday? And be complete. What does it mean, complete? And all the time you have this foreskin, you can't be complete. You're covered. That the foreskin is like a blemish. And they said when he added on another letter, hey, so he gave Abraham power over 5 organs that he didn't have before: his 2 eyes, his 2 ears, and his organ of procreation. And another one is, we said that Avraham is the numerical value 248. And before that, before the hay, he only had 243. He was missing these 5 organs, and now he has complete control over. Okay. I will put my covenant between me and between you, and I will increase you very, very much. What type of covenant? A covenant of love. Brita Oretz Lorisha, giving you a covenant that you will inherit the land of Israel by means of this covenant. So here we go. By means of this covenant that God tells Abraham to circumcise himself. So by means of this, as he basically gives birth to the Jewish people, and he is promised the land of Israel, and he's promised he's going to have birth to Jewish people because he's promised he's going to have a child. We'll see that next week. Vayipol Avram al panav, and Avram fell on his face. Why did he do that? Vayedaber Hashem ito Elohim, and God spoke to him. Why did he fall on his face? So Rashi says he fell on his face from the fear of God's presence. That until he was circumcised, he didn't have the power to stand and accept the spirit of holiness that was appearing to him. And that's why it says, like it says in Bilam, Bilam, we'll learn about that later on. Bilam tried to curse the Jews in the days of Moses when they were in the desert. It says that Bilam used to be able to speak to God, but he always was falling on his face. No fel begilu yanayim, because he couldn't take it. He said, Ramban, Rab Moses ben Nachman, he lived 700 years ago, something. He says a little bit differently. He says that why did Abraham fall on his face? This was because he was surrendering himself for prophecy. And when it was finished from the prophecy of the commandment of circumcision, then he stood up. And he stood. And then God spoke to him again from heaven. And he said, Sarah, your wife, etc. And then he fell on his face again, because each time he's not like what Rashi said. He disagrees with what Rashi said. He wasn't able to receive. He says no, that he's falling on his face in order to prepare himself to receive more words of God. And at that time, he also prayed for Yishmael. We'll see. This is like Moses. He fell on his face to pray for the Jewish people when they had sinned. Okay, so it says, when he's beseeching, that's what he's saying. So the Ramban says that he's just surrendering himself to God, not because he couldn't receive the prophecy. So it's really not any contradiction. I mean, here you could say he fell. Ramban is saying that he fell on his face before he received, as a preparation. And here he's saying that he fell on his face after he received. It was too much. Okay. So God said, behold, my covenant is with you, and you will be the father of many nations. Hamon Goyim. That was the Ramban we just did, right? This is the circumcision. I mean, God made another covenant with Abraham earlier in this week's Torah portion when he sacrificed those animals and cut them in two. Here's the Sifrono, Balaturim, is Avamon Goyim. It says twice in this week's Torah portion. This is he's very genius in gematras. This comes, the name, if you take all these letters, Avamon Goyim twice, this is exactly the numerical value of the word Yitzchak. Pretty amazing. 200 and we could count it a little bit, but Av Hamon. No, I'm sorry, just two times Av Hamon. Want to count it? Let's see. Yitzchak is 208. Av Hamon twice. Is that 208? Let's see. Here we have 208, right? So we have Mem and Nun is 90. And Vav and Hey is 11. So that's 111. And Aleph and Beis, that's 104. So if you take 104 two times, you get 208. That's Yitzchak. Hey, it's pretty good. Okay. That is, Arba B'Gamach, also when it says Arba, I will Arbe Zaracha, it says. Arbe, I will multiply. That's also the numerical value of Yitzchak. 208. 5, that's 200. 5, 2, and 1. All right, very nice. Okay. It was a genius. You could just look at the Torah and you could immediately see these things. Okay. You will be the father of a multitude of nations. All right, let's do the Kli Ykar a little bit, just as a Kli Ykar, when it says Hine, what is it? And I behold. Now, when you usually say behold, it means you're showing someone something that already exists. That's what he says here. Look at this. That's what God is saying. Look at this. That shows on something that already exists. We can say that my covenant is already with you. In other words, I already decided this thing. And the truth is so, because the circumcision, that's just a sign on the outside of what was going on the inside. This is just a sign of the removal of the foreskin of the heart in his purification. So without any doubt, Jakodem Stam, before this, Abraham already did have a pure heart. Therefore, God said, I know that you are, my covenant is already with you because you have a pure heart. Now, this thing of a pure heart is very interesting, because we can see that a person can be a genius and he can be talented and he can be popular and he can be, kind, and he can be a good doctor and a good this and even make miracles, but he can have a bad heart. He can be a cruel person. He can be cruel to others, or he can be vindictive or angry. So Abraham had a good heart. A good heart means that in the inside, he really wanted to do good to everybody. He wanted to be beneficial. But so Abraham, he said, you already have a good heart, but because I want to make you the father of all mankind, so I have to put something physical to bring this out into the physical world. That's then to advertise your highness, right? It says a lot of times that Germans, may be wiped out their names, That's what they would know who a Jew is, right? They would, by means of by the circumcision, the external circumcision, the sign on the outside, this testifies that Abraham has a pure heart. None of the future generations should know that I was right to make Abraham a good person. Sometimes their heart is a little bit too good, but I mean, and we see in Israel, they catch these murderers and terrorists and they don't kill them. They don't sentence them to death. Probably pretty bizarre. Well, that'll change. Okay, so it says that if a person is merciful where he should be cruel, then he'll be cruel where he should be merciful. But nevertheless, we see that the Jewish people, that was King Saul. He didn't kill Agag, and so it ended up he was cruel and he wanted to kill David. Okay. Your name will not be called Avram, but your name will become Avraham. And he says again, Ki Avamun goyim latatecha, because I have made you a father of many nations. And here, this is what Rashi says, that up to now, you will be the father of all mankind. Akshav l'kol olam, you're the father of the whole world. Let's do a little bit of the Or HaChaim HaKadosh. In the Midrash, it says that Avram said, Vayomer Avram, Han Li. It says, Rabbi Yishmael said to Rabbi Yitzchak, Ein atam molid. Abraham said, please give me children. He wanted children. He said, he said, Avram can't give birth. Remember we said that before? God said to him, like we said, Avram can't give birth. Avraham is a different name. I'm changing your name. So in heaven, it's decreed that Avram is not going to give birth, but I'm changing your name. And Sarah, the same thing. Sarai, her name is Sarai, she can't give birth, but Sarah can. So Or HaChaim says that doesn't make any sense, because we see that Abraham did give birth. He gave birth to Ishmael 13 years before he was circumcised, 12 years before he was circumcised. Always have to understand, what does it mean that Sarai can't give birth? It said, the problem was only with Abraham. Lo elo lahashiv elo Avram. He said, what did Abraham say? What did God say to Abraham? Avram can't give birth, but Avraham can. And he said, and Sarai can't give birth. Who talked about Sarai? He didn't talk about Sarai at all. So he says the answer is like this. The main children of Abraham are those that he gave to birth by Sarah, of course, because Yitzchak will be called, we'll run that next week, Yitzchak Ykar Elechazara. And Avram Avinu, he knew this in prophecy, that Yishmael is only just, getting rid of the negative forces, clearing the road, so to speak, so that Yitzchak can come and he can be pure. And he saw that his main children will only come right. Well, he saw that he wasn't going to have any children. He realized that Yitzchak he could have children, that Ishmael he could give birth to, but Ishmael was not the main purpose, and Abraham knew that. So therefore, Avram said, God said, Avram, don't worry about it. Avram is not going to give birth to that child that is going to give birth to the Jewish people. He can give birth to Ishmael. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about Yitzchak. Therefore, now he says, and therefore he mentions Sarah, because the birth of Yitzchak was going to come from Sarah. That's why Abraham had to be circumcised. Not that he couldn't give birth, but he couldn't give birth to the Jewish people without it. I will make you very, very, fertile, fruitful, and many nations will come from you. What do you mean? I will make you to nations, nation of Israel, and Edom, which today is basically all of the Jews that live in Europe. Yishmael already was there, and God is not advertising about Yishmael. I will make my covenant between you and between him for all the generations, an eternal covenant. And I will be for you a God, and for all your children afterwards. And since then, we see the Jews cannot leave God. There are individuals, of course, that did, become apostates and love God. But nevertheless, strangely, the Jews always cling to God. What is this covenant? So here we have a third covenant. What the third covenant? One covenant is that God says to Abraham, "You're going to give birth to the Jewish people." Another covenant is, "I'm going to give the land of Israel." Another covenant is that I'm going to be your God. The Jewish people are always going to have this sense, this connection to the creator of the universe. I have given you and your seed after you this land, all of the land of Canaan, for an eternal possession. And I will be for you for a God. So here he rolls the whole thing up into one. God is rolling the whole thing up. And there in Israel, I will be for you for a God in Israel. But says a person who lives outside of Israel, it's as though he doesn't have a God. Huh? Who says this? Rashi, who lived outside of Israel, he lived in France. But the fact of the matter is that it's true. The idea of what's going to draw the Jewish people, how is Mashiach going to draw the Jewish people to Israel? What difference does it make where they live? They'll make all the Jewish people religious, and that's enough. He says, no. The whole thing of the Mashiach is to draw all the Jews closer to God. The only way you can come closer to God is by doing the commandments. That's the only way. You can talk as much as you want, but the main thing is the action. So, and the only place that the Jewish people can do all the commandments is the land of Israel. That's where the Holy Temple is going to be built. In addition to that, the land of Israel is the Holy Land. It's a holy land, right? Despite what the Zionists say and the other people say, it is a holy land that is given only to the Jewish people, despite what the missionaries say and the Muslims say, and the whole place is crazy, right? You go into Jerusalem, there's the Armenian quarter in Jerusalem. Who's the Armenians? Where did they come from? Where the Armenians go around and run around? You ever been in Armenia? How does Armenia get a place? I guess somehow or other this is all right. Anyway, let's not delve into things. There's a tremendous confusion in the world now, and Mashiach will definitely take care of this in a pleasant way. In a pleasant way, it's not going to have to. Everybody will admit that. Listen, okay, we're wrong. The land of Israel belongs to you, right? God spoke to Abraham, and you, my covenant, you should keep, you and your children forever. Ve'ata, and you. This is adding something. What's it adding? Is I am making my covenant with you, and now you, God is saying, you have to be careful with it. How are you supposed to be careful? This is what makes sure that every Jew circumcises his children. Huh? And this is really quite an amazing thing, because I know, listen, in Russia, they didn't circumcise their children, but usually the last commandment that the Jews abandon, God forbid, when they start abandoning the commandments, the last one is usually circumcision. They'll even intermarry. I know, because I had a good friend, he passed away. His name was Hanan Feld. He did a lot of circumcisions in California. He learned together with me in yeshiva. And he said that there were a lot of cases where Israelis especially, they go to America, they get married to a non-Jewish woman, but they want to make a circumcision. And a lot of times they don't even tell their parents. They're ashamed, especially the Sephardic Jews. They go to America, and their parents were super religious. They came from Morocco or from Iraq or from wherever, from Algeria. And they go to America, they find a nice-looking Gentile girl. They get married, and they have children. Oh, they have a child. What are they going to do now? And so we want to make a circumcision. Now, a child that's born from a non-Jewish woman is not Jewish. I mean, you can make a circumcision, but you can't make the blessings. And also you can't advertise that he's Jewish, So this friend of mine, he said that he says he wants the proof that the mother is Jewish, and he says, oh yes, a lot of times they say, of course she is, she's Jewish. She's converted. Can you bring it from the house? Oh, we lost the paper. So that's what he said. That's what the Seforno says. Abaya of a Seforno. God is saying here, just like I'm always going to keep the covenant with you, you also be careful to keep the covenant with me. If so, there won't be any covenant, right? If you don't circumcise yourselves, what am I going to do? I'm not going to circumcise you. God says, by means of this, I'm unifying my name on you. You, the Jewish people, are God's chosen people. God's chosen people. All the other religions are religions. They're just religions. They're not people or a race or a nation or anything like that. But the Jews are a people. There are all sorts of different races. I mean, you can't, nothing similar between a Jew that comes from Yemen and a Jew that comes from Brazil. They don't look at all, but they are the Jewish race. Why? What makes them a Jew? Because they're God's people. They're God's people. That's it. Like I said, the Zionists wanted to change all that. They wanted to say that no, we're just a nationality. We have a country. We're the land and everything. But it won't work. It can't work. The Jews always. Judaism is too powerful. It's too real. It's more real than anything that the world has to offer. Any nationality. This is the covenant that now up to now, God didn't exactly explain what the covenant is, right? So he says, what is the covenant? Himul lechem chol zachor. You should circumcise every male. Rashi says, what do you mean male? You should circumcise every male. It doesn't exactly, we'll see. Umaltem as basar, you must remove, cut off the flesh of the orla, of the foreskin. And this will be a sign of the covenant between me and you. Okay, so it says that there's several times where it uses the word orla. There's the orla, the foreskin of the heart. Moses, for instance, he said to God at the burning bush, "Ani arel safasayim," my mouth is covered. I can't speak clearly. This is Moses got cured at Mount Sinai when everybody got cured, but till then he couldn't speak. God says that the prophets says that the ears of the Jewish people are oral. They're covered over, and sometimes their eyes are covered over. It says, Uben Shmonef Yomim, 8 years, 9 years. No, God didn't really explain what it's talking about over here. Where is this flesh? Right? Where should it, flesh of what? Maybe on his ears? It says, a child that's 8 years old, 8 days old, you should circumcise every male. Or for the generations, whether he's born in a house, whether you purchase a servant, even if it's a child of a non-Jew that converts, even if he's not, it says, what does it mean? You'll lead bias. If you have a Jewish maidservant, she gives birth. If you buy a slave, a Jewish slave, technically, there used to be a thing called slaves. A Jewish slave you buy, you circumcise him, you have to be circumcised. Okay, so it says, so it says every male has to be circumcised on his flesh. But it still is not clear, maybe on the nose, on the flesh of the ear, who knows? Okay, oral zachar, here we go. A uncircumcised male that is not circumcised, that you don't circumcise his flesh, that person will be cut off from the people. You have a child, a male child, and you don't circumcise him, so it's a big punishment. I mean, what does it mean, a big punishment? Not that he's going to, something bad's going to happen to you in the world, but spiritually it's very bad. But here we learn that the Mila, circumcision, is in that same place that you can recognize between a male and a female. Oral zachar. So if you don't circumcise him, if a child, when he gets to or the child doesn't circumcise himself, as soon as he becomes the age of being punishable, then he gets cut off. But the father not. He just transgresses a positive commandment. Okay, so usually, this person will be cut off from his people. The commandment is that you have to circumcise your male children. The real commandment is you have to circumcise yourself. If your father didn't do it, then you have to do to yourself. So the punishment is a very severe one. God said to Abraham, what about your wife, Sarah? Sarai, your wife, will not be called anymore Sarai. She'll be called Sarah. Because when it says Sarai, it means to me and not to others. Sarai means she is like a princess, Sarah, ruler to me. And Sarah means that she'll be ruler all on everyone. Right? The Kli Ykar is a thing with grammar also. Yud usually signifies a male and hey, a female. I'll bless you, and also I will, from you will come a son, and he will be from her. Will come a there will come from her to you a son. I will bless her, and this will be many kings and nations will come from him. That, of course, is going to be Yitzchak. It says, I'll bless her. What's the blessing that God gave to her? She became young again. She was 90 years old when she gave birth. And it says, and I will bless her. What does it mean? That her breasts she'll be able to nurse her child. We'll see that next week, when learning of next week, that when she gives birth to Yitzchak, so everyone is laughing at her. And they're saying, obviously, this child does not come from her. Right? She's 90 years old. 90 years old ladies don't give birth. She never gave birth before. So it said that all the women, she said, okay, have all the women come and bring their children. I'll nurse them all. It says, probably, where did Yitzchak come from? Everyone was saying, you probably found him in the street or something. And you're saying that this is my son. So she said, okay, everybody bring your children, and I will nurse all of them. She gave nursing to all. That's what it means. Abraham fell on his face and he laughed. And he said in his heart, can really a 100-year-old man give birth? And here, I want to finish now. So we'll see next week also, Sarah laughs. So it says Abraham was laughing because he was happy. He was happy. He said, I'm going to be 100 years old. He was 99 when this whole thing happened, right? He circumcised himself. At 99 years old, I'm going to give birth. But Sarah said she laughed because she couldn't believe it. She didn't believe it. God came to her and said, you're going to give birth to children. She didn't believe it. So Abraham says, Lu, it should only be the Ishmael should be before you. And God said, Sarah, your wife, she's going to give the birth to the child. And you're going to call him Yitzchak. And I will establish my covenant with him for an eternal covenant afterwards. And what about Ishmael? You said, don't worry, I'm going to bless him also. And he's going to be very fruitful. And he's going to be very, have a great multitude. Very much. And 12 princes are going to come from him. They'll tell us what the princes are later. He's going to be a big nation. But my covenant I'm going to make with Yitzchak. That you're going to be, the Sarah is going to give birth. And really not all of Yitzchak, because Yitzchak is going to give birth to Esav also. And God finished talking to him, and God said, went away from Avram. This is a nice way of saying it, that God, so to speak, left Abraham. Abraham took Yishmael, now his name is Avraham, right? Avram circumcised himself. Avram took Yishmael, his son, and everyone in his house, and everyone he bought, all of his servants, and he circumcised everyone. On that day, just like God said, Avram was 99 years old when he circumcised himself. Yishmael was 13 years old when he was sacrificed. On that very day, and this is the mimer we're going to learn tomorrow in Torah Or. On that very day, Abraham and Yishmael was circumcised, Avram and Yishmael his son. So Abraham circumcised himself. Why does he say he was circumcised? Okay, that's the mimer talks about that. It says that God helped him. When Abraham was 99 years old, and Yishmael when he was 13 years old, that Avram and Yishmael were circumcised on that day. And all the people in his house and all that he had purchased, they also were circumcised on that very day. Why does it say Be'etzem Hayom Hazeh on that very day? So because Abraham circumcised himself, La'en called in front of everybody, and he was not ashamed before those people who saw him, because Al Pi Rashi, according, that's what the Kli Ykar says. Why Lama Yimchu called Leitzani Ador? All the people were laughing at him. Let's see what Rashi says here. I'm sorry, I thought this was Rashi because it's the same color. That says on Etzem Hayom Hazeh that Abraham was 99 years old and Yishmael also was 13 years old. They were both circumcised on that same day. So he says, no, it's even more than that. Everyone was laughing at Abraham. What are you doing? 99 years old, you're circumcising yourself. It's a dangerous thing. And for what? What are you doing it for? So he said he did it in front of everyone. Because according to Rashi, why didn't the jokers of the nation stop him? So he says, so according to one opinion, the rabbis say that he was circumcised on Yom HaKippurim, like the rabbis say, Be'etzem Hayom Hazeh, on this very day. Okay, so in any case, Abraham advertised the fact that he is making a covenant with God and that no one can complain. Here, the Dat Zkanim says that Rabban Gamliel says that Abraham sent and he called also to Shem. Remember, Noah had these three sons, and Shem was a direct, he was the forerunner of Abraham. Shem, he called the Shem, the son of Noah, and he circumcised him also. And Yishmael, his son, what does it mean? Be'etzem hayom hazeh, be'etzem gvuroto shel yom. Not only that, it was on the Etzem Hayom was on the 10th day of the 7th month, Yom Kippurim. This comes to tell you that the Etzem, it says over here, Lahalan ta'anu be'etzem hayom ta'anu et nafshetechem. It says later on that on that very day you should fast. That's Etzem Hayom Hazeh. That's Yom Kippur. Just like back then, it's Yom Kippur. Also now is Yom Kippur. That's what we said before. So every single year on Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, or of forgiveness, when God sees, he remembers the blood of the circumcision that Abraham circumcised himself, this brings forgiveness on all of our sins. It says that Abraham took the knife and he grabbed onto his foreskin to cut it off. When he came to cut, he was afraid. He said maybe he was old, and God helped him, held his hand, so to speak, and grabbed on. That's what it says. That God helped Abraham to circumcise himself. I don't know if you've ever seen it. I mean, I've been present. We used to have in our house, there was this organization called Brit Yosef Yitzchak, and they used to make circumcisions, especially on Russians. It was like a little hospital. We had one little room. It was like a little hospital room. There was an operating table, and it was very heavy, so it would be, and professional circumcisers, doctors would come in, people, religious Jews, and they would and I saw circumcisions of people that were 30, 40, 50 years old, and it's a massive thing. It's not simple. There's a lot of blood involved, and these usually here that was done with an injection. Injection. It was painful, but not that painful. It was especially painful after when it cured. But Abraham had to endure that pain, and he was also the one that was circumcising himself, so he had to feel that pain. So it's a pretty amazing story. That's the covenant of the Jewish people with God, and God with the Jewish people. Okay, have a good day with Mashiach. Now, God willing, tomorrow 8:15, we'll learn Chassidut.